Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you're here today, and thank you for introducing yourselves in the chat. And it's really exciting to hear all of the different things that you heard during or you learned during the AmeriCorps conference last week. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it and were able to have some good takeaways. This week, we're going to talk about planning a service project and how you can honor National Days of Service. So can anyone tell me what a National Day of Service is? Put it in the chat. What do you think of when you think of a National Day of Service? Anybody? A day on, not a day off. That's right, Allison. Anything else that comes to mind? Helping others. Working together as a volunteer. I agree. Dedicates to serving others. Those are all good things. Recruiting volunteers. So a day of service is a federal holiday that's observed as a national day of service. Allison was exactly right. It's considered to be a day on, not a day off. And national service days are days to help empower individuals, strengthen communities, and bridge barriers. There are 4 national days of service: MLK Day of Service in January, AmeriCorps Week in March, National Volunteer Week in April, and National Day of Service and Remembrance in September. AmeriCorps members are required to plan 2 service projects each year in recognition of National Days of Service. This year, you should plan an MLK Day project and a spring service project in recognition of either AmeriCorps Week or National Volunteer Week. How many of you have participated in a service project before? If you have, tell us about your project in the chat. Not many projects? Okay, so Michelle was in the coat drive last year. Yeah, that's a great project. Anything else? Okay, well, then this will be the first year for many of you. In 2022, we'll work together across the the Education Alliance AmeriCorps program to provide a common service project in honor of MLK Day. Then you can select a project you're passionate about for your spring service project. Let's start by talking about MLK Day, which will happen on January 17th this year. I'm going to turn it over to Allison to tell you about the Coats for Kids drive that Michelle mentioned just a minute ago.
Hi, everyone. I was a part of the Coats for Kids drive last year, and I know that some of you also were as well. I think, Michelle, you said you contributed as well, so you're very familiar with this one. We ended up having a lot of donations. I think, Emily, I'm not sure, what was our original goal?
300, I think.
300, and we ended up doing nearly 3,000. So a little bit about the theme. So it was inspired by a mission that we found called One Warm Coat, and their whole goal is to donate winter clothes so no child or adult goes cold. But since we are more based on K-12, we decided to focus a little bit more on Coats for Kids. So we primarily focused on underprivileged kids, and the logistics that were required were, first, we assembled our team. So for us, that was by county, and at the time I was living in Wheeling, so I was in Ohio County. So it's nice to have like kind of a small knit group. But then you had to determine your method. You could either make it a one-day event, or you could set up drop-off locations over 2 to 3 weeks. We chose to do drop-off locations just so we could collect more passively, and hopefully we get a chance to get more donations. So then the next step after that would be to find a charity in your local community that you can donate to. We ended up donating to Youth Services System. And we actually, the people there also had Vista members, and they helped us out a lot too. So that was one huge benefit. And then we had to identify businesses who are willing to set up donation boxes, and I'll dive into a little bit more with the challenges about that in a little bit. So then we also had to put together these donation boxes. We are lucky that Jody happened to have this gigantic box, but I think a lot of people just end up using like tote containers, because realistically, we never had a problem with it becoming too full, because then we would also be sure to pick up weekly and get it out of the way so it wouldn't overflow. So those were the logistics of that. And so yeah, we did have a lot of help in our local team, and honestly, I don't think we could have done it without the support from Youth Services Systems and the businesses who were willing to be those drop-off locations. And ultimately, what got the most donations was definitely word of mouth. Around January, there was a lot of time, like that was the time people were kind of cleaning out their clothes anyway. So all you kind of had to do is reach out to people and say, hey, do you have a coat that you are looking to get rid of anyway? Because we're doing this for the next 3 weeks. And then we measured our success, and through just like I think it was a Google form that Emily would send us, and we just put this all in a spreadsheet. And although it was called Coats for Kids, we got a lot more winter items, gloves, scarves, hats, and we got a lot of shoes, which was interesting last year. But then other than that, you can set personal goals for yourself as well. I think when we were planning it last year, we decided as long as everyone had about 20 donations per county, we would reach our goal, but we of course ended up superseding that pretty well. But then the challenges I found to be a lot more in the businesses. They had really understandable reasons why they didn't want to be a drop-off location. A lot of the restaurants that we tried to reach out to, like local restaurants, they had health concerns about it. They didn't want people coming in with their old worn clothes, and that was very understandable, especially since it was the start of 2020 last year, or 2021. Oh my gosh. But yeah, they had very real concerns, and when you just kind of need to go to the next one after that. But we also found that we didn't have a lot of luck with large chains. Like I remember me and Jody were saying that Kroger would have been the perfect place, but we reached out to them and we didn't get a call back until the next few days, and they said, well, we'd have to clear it through our district manager, and we're not so sure about that anyway. And yeah, it just ended up being a lot, like way too much red tape to try to go through. So you are a lot better off with more local businesses. We ended up finding there's a couple local restaurants that would do it. There's also this store called Touch of Amish, so like gift shops, like local businesses that really need the foot traffic anyway are willing to work with you, we found. Some people might use it as a trash bin too, so don't get too disheartened by that. Just clean it out when you go there weekly, and expect to get more than just coats, and expect them to be in all shapes and forms, kids, adults, gloves, hats, shoes, whatever. Like people will realistically probably just use it as like a kind of like a Goodwill drop-off location. That's okay, because we'll find a place to put that eventually.
Before we go to Allison's last screen, I just wanted to say anyone who's a returning member who had some comments about the Coats for Kids drive, put them in the chat so we can share them when Allison finishes.
So what I would recommend is that you don't waste your time on big corporations. And if we do this again, then we just reach out to the same businesses that worked out last year. So we had a very clear list of what drop-off locations were in each county, and chances are that if they worked with us during 2021, they'll work with us in 2022. And another way we could encourage more friends and family to share is just maybe under that messaging of start spring cleaning early, and also keeping the same branding and name, because I think we got a little bit of recognition from it last year, and if we repeat ourselves, and our communities might be expecting it.
Thanks for sharing, Allison. A couple of things other people said was, Kristen said that people already had coats because it was the middle of winter. A church had donated in their area, so that was a challenge. And Michelle Lilly said that one problem that she had was that not all the items were new, and because of COVID, it was difficult to give them to people. And then I see that Olivia had a question whether the drop-off locations have to be businesses, and they don't. Many of our members had their drop-off locations at their schools or other places like that in the community. And Jackie said that she got a good amount of coats, but she's at the high school and they didn't all want coats. They more were interested in wearing sweatshirts. So that gives you guys an idea of what we did last year for MLK Day. And so it's time to go ahead and start planning for this year, and you guys get to pick what you want your project to be. So you could vote to choose to have Coats for Kids again this year, or we could do something else. I'm gonna send you a poll now, and you will have an opportunity to vote on what project you want to do this year. Okay, so you guys can see the results. It was a very close tie between Coats for Kids again, or writing thank you notes to soldiers and veterans. But it does look like Coats for Kids won out by 1 vote. So we'll be doing that again this year for our project. Thanks guys for voting, and we'll talk some more about how you can start planning your project. So you've heard about MLK Day, and so now I want to talk to you a little bit about your spring service projects. In honor of either AmeriCorps Week or National Volunteer Week, you will get to select a project to complete locally. You can either complete the project individually or in a group. I'm going to send you a handout I want you to open, and it lists 101 different service project ideas. I want you to pull it up and take a few minutes to look through it, and then in the chat box, tell me what projects stand out to you. I'm going to go forward and let Mary share, but keep sending in the projects that you like. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mary Lamp, who hosted a local animal shelter supply drive last year for her spring service project.
Thank you. I'm Mary Lamp. I'm through Pleasants County.
With you what you did.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Mary Lamp with Pleasants County AmeriCorps. I'm a mentor. I'm a returning mentor. This is my 2nd year. So during our spring project, it was a little tricky because normally we would have the whole list of projects to go off of, but we kind of wanted to do something that was a little more socially distanced, since in our area cases were rising and there were a lot of concerns about that. And the shelters were also closed, but we still did decide to go with a pet food drive. So we called it the Pet Palooza, and it was very well received from our community. We have amazing local shelters. I mean, amazing ladies that work there, and they don't often ever ask for help, but I know that help is really needed there. So I'm really glad that we decided to focus on that. Even though a lot of people still weren't getting out during the time of our project, we placed 5 or 6 different location bins through our community. And we're very, very fortunate because since we have such a small county, it was very easy to ask businesses to be a drop-off location. And even if we didn't have those, there were tons of other businesses that probably would have cooperated with that. So even though it was a very small project, it got a lot of traction. I actually decided to go the Facebook route. So I made an event on Facebook for it, since a lot of people weren't getting out to see flyers. And I think we also talked to the newspaper, but it was very well received that way. And tons of people shared it, and tons of people marked that they were going to it. So it gained a lot of traction within our area. And we were able to donate over 90 full-sized items to the cat and dog shelter. That included toys, litter, dry food, wet food, some collars and leashes, pet pads, tons of different stuff. And I think that I added it all up and it was a value of over $400. So I was pretty excited about it. I strategically placed one of the drop-off locations at a local dollar store with photos of the pets that were to be adopted, that were available for adoption. And a lot of people would buy at that location and they'd save it all up for us. And then we'd take it to the shelter. So I was very, very fortunate to have been able to be a part of that project. Something I wish that I could have done differently. I wish that we were able to have more of a reach, but due to the circumstance, we were kind of limited with our options there. I wish I could have got some more people on board. And that's our hopes for this year with reaching out to the community through AmeriCorps. I'm definitely trying to make more connections within our area with other passionate individuals and groups such as Boys and Girls Club and Neighborhood Network, and even local businesses such as the hardware store and the local restaurants. They all were such a big help to us. And I definitely recommend doing something like that. I think it could be beneficial to any area. And it did help with adoption. I don't have the actual statistics on that, but people were involved and interested in the shelter and took a chance to look into adopting. So I was really, really happy to help with that as well.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Mary. One of the things Mary mentioned was she had to think about COVID in her project. And I think that that's something that we're still dealing with, maybe not at the same severity, but it's still an issue. So I will share a few COVID project tips that we found. So, virtual or drive-through drives are always a good idea. Having activities outdoors. Or if you have an indoor project, make sure it's in a large space or use multiple shifts so that people can come at different times. Thinking about pre-registration, so you would know how many people will be there. And then also, I think setting aside the materials for 48 hours to be able to prevent any spread of diseases is a good thing as well. You're going to be responsible for providing a report on your service project. So make sure to collect pictures, the number of volunteers leveraged, the number of volunteers served, and donations received and any media coverage you receive, because you'll have to turn that information in. Planning a service project is often, or it requires a lot of the same steps as planning an event. So I'm going to share with you some common strategies to plan a successful event. And then depending on what you choose for your service project, you'll probably need to at least use some of these steps, if not all of them. And then you can also use this information later in your service when you have to plan an event. So before we get started, I want you to just scroll down to the top or to the next section in the handout that I sent you. So there's a number of different types of events you might be planning. And so I'd like for you in the chat to share with me if you're planning any of these kinds of events during your service this year, and I'm going to tell you about some of the things. So, you know, whether it's a conference, a meeting, a networking opportunity, webinar, training, a workshop, there's a lot of different things you might need to do this year. So anyone have any, nobody shared anything that you're doing. So let's talk about what is common around, you know, planning steps. So there are 10 main things that you should consider. And the first one is developing your event goal and objectives. The first step to planning any event is establishing tangible goals and objectives. You might start by asking yourself, you know, why am I organizing this event and what do I hope to achieve? Who are you targeting? You know, what is that target audience? Is it 50 people? Is it 500 people? Are you looking to attract new volunteers or engage your program participants? How does the event align with your organization's objectives? You know, if you're a mentor serving at a school and you are getting donations of coats, that could be a really good alignment to helping support your students. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you looking to get more program volunteers? Are you conducting a training? Are you trying to increase membership for your organization or boost morale, raise awareness? Are you wanting to drive people to do something specific like donate? Or are you just trying to inspire and motivate them? You really want to know what's going to be the content for your event, and perhaps more importantly, what are the intended takeaways? If you know your organization's key goals before planning, you can ensure that every part of your event is optimized for success. Setting a goal with qualitative metrics of success will make it easier for your team to ensure you reach them. The second thing is about organizing your team. Any event takes a concentrated effort from a team to be able to complete all the details. Consider identifying one key person to be the chair of the event, and then maybe some subcommittees that are going to do things like organizing staff, entertainment, publicity, speakers, sponsors, venue management, or volunteer management. Assigning individual roles to the team members creates a system of accountability as well as preventing tasks from falling through the wayside. So we're going to take a minute to start thinking through a project. So you can either, I'm going to put you in a group to discuss, and you can either discuss your MLK Day project, the Codes for Kids Drive, or if you guys want to talk about what you're going to do for your spring project, or even if you have a different event you're going to plan this year, pick one project, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to talk through the first 2 questions in your handout. So everybody has their handouts up? Okay, I'm going to put you in a small group to discuss. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your discussions. Would a couple people be willing to share with me what you discussed? Share what you decided, which project you were going to talk about today, and then who is on your team, and what are your goals for your event? So would somebody be willing to share? You can unmute yourself to share.
I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we had a really huge success with our coat drive last year. and that was really exciting. So we actually still have some left over from that, since the local radio station does a coat drive as well. And so I was so happy we got so many things, even though they do the same organization. It's pretty funny. So it was like a back-to-back coat drive, but we got a lot of coats, and we also got a lot of hand knitted mittens and hats and scarves. So we got a lot of them through Neighborhood Network and the community outreach program. So we definitely want to partner with them again this year. We decided to stay within Pleasants County instead of going to Wood because we have special needs for our county, and we have a lot of kids that we can put faces to that need coats. So I actually reached out to schools last year to see if any specific families were in need of stuff like that. And then if they preferred sweatshirts or hoodies or winter coats, if they have multiple kids, so we could kind of focus on those sizes too. So the schools are definitely a big part of our team as well when planning stuff like that. And that's all I really have to share.
Thanks for sharing, Mary. Would one other person be willing to share? Come on, there has to be at least somebody who could share.
I can go, Emily.
Okay, go ahead, Allison.
So I was in a group with Paul and Kayla, who are both from Logan County, and we decided to talk about the coat drive project. And I just kind of stressed to them that it is really beneficial to have a lot of people on your team from your county. And I know Paul really wanted to try to donate a lot of coats to the kids at the high school. So I think it seems like that's going to be his ultimate goal. But I just encourage him to come up with a plan B in case the high school doesn't want to hold all those coats.
That's a great point. And one thing that I know, I don't remember what county it was, but somebody created a clothing closet last year when they started it out with some of their donations. So maybe something like that's a good thing to look into. So let's move on to step number 3 in planning an organization, and planning an event. So it is establishing your budget. Establishing your events budget is one of the most important parts of planning any events. I've seen many great events fall by the wayside because the team who was planning it didn't think about all the costs and what would be included. And so some important things to consider are the venue. How much does it cost to rent space to have your events? Are you going to have food and drink? This is usually the #1 way to get people there. And so you'll want to include costs for food and drink or donations for it. Entertainment. So if you had an event that was attracting people to come, you might want to have a speaker, a DJ, or just something random like a talking pig. You are going to want to make the space look good, so you'll have to consider decor. Are you going to make little things that go along with your theme? Are you going to print things out, give takeaway items? Who's going to staff your events? So often you forget about, who do you really need to do all of these things? And if you're planning an event that are bringing people in, consider things like lodging and travel costs that you'd have to provide for those people. Marketing, how are you going to let people know what's going on with your event? Are you putting up flyers around town? Are you going to post it on social media? Or what are you going to do to really get the word out there? AV, and so anything from your projector to Wi-Fi, what do you need to make your event successful? That's often an area that people forget about. And then also, what miscellaneously things do you have left? Every best laid plan has some additional costs that you might not have thought of. So you'll want to have some extra money for that. Step 4 is setting your date. The date might already be preset for an event like our MLK Day project, but for other projects, you want to think through what's the best date. So some things to think about are you want to give yourself enough time to truly plan the event. So sometimes they say you should have 4 to 6 months to plan an event, but other smaller events need less time. Be aware of any holidays or common days that people wouldn't be able to attend. Also avoid school holidays or periods they're off, like spring or summer breaks or something in the winter. Check the key dates with people who might need to be attended. So a speaker, a presenter, any VIP guests you want to have there. Once you've set the date, you can start booking your external staff and getting your venue set. Task number 5 is creating an event master plan. Once you have a good idea of all the costs and the timeline associated with your event, it's time to get started. Creating your event master plan will allow you to ensure that you've done all of the things that you need to and track that they're complete. Your event master plan should include all aspects of your event, from the venue, logistics, and catering management to speakers, presenters, any kind of activities or entertainment, how you're going to promote your event, whether it's online or through paper flyers or in the radio or newspaper, and then also registration. So step number 6 is booking your venue. Once you have the date nailed down, it's important to know where you're going to have your event. So your event has a location, or I'm sorry, some important things to consider are accessibility. Does the venue have enough entrances and exits? Are there bathrooms? Is there enough parking? Is it somewhere easy for people to come to? How big is your event? An event for 50 people is much different than an event for 500. So you'll want to make sure to know that ahead of time and plan accordingly. Parking is always really important because if you don't have enough parking, then people can't come in. And you also need to consider things like insurance. Are there any kinds of liability insurance you need to have? AV is also very important to get squared away up front. And sometimes it has additional costs, so you'll want to be able to consider that. And you also will want to make sure that your venue fits within the costs that you have allocated. So let's talk about kind of what events look like in COVID. So COVID's changed the way many events look. Now we have in-person, virtual, and hybrid events. Make sure to pick a structure that will allow your event to be effective and safe for participants at the same time. If you're planning an in-person event, you might want to hold your event outside. Make sure you have a large enough space that meeting outdoors or consider meeting in multiple shifts. It's also beneficial to require pre-registration so that you can plan appropriately for the number of people who are coming. There are several different event registration softwares out there. For registration, I typically use either Zoom or Eventbrite. Are there any other systems anybody else uses that you want to share about in the chat? Also, for payments, I've had success using Eventbrite, PayPal, Venmo, and Facebook Pay to collect payments. Remember that as an AmeriCorps member, you can't directly receive payments. So an event that requires funding, the payment should be collected by your school or your service site, and they should manage those things. So does anybody have any? No things that they've used. So for virtual events, there's a few techniques to make your virtual event successful. The first one is limit the length of the event to 60 to 90 minutes. People usually can't think or concentrate online when you use an event longer than that. Provide plenty of breaks. Most of your events and use a event software that's easy to use and make your event interactive. There are several free event softwares out there, including Facebook Messenger Rooms, Google Meet, Microsoft Meet, and Zoom Free. Probably the most common used webinar software is Zoom, and they offer a 40-minute free webinar option that has call recording. It's extremely important to make virtual events interactive. This is a list of interactive softwares that I use. Some of my favorites are Kahoot quizzes, which we use in the orientation, Poll Everywhere to gather feedback, and the picker wheel to randomly pick a winner. Does anybody have any other examples of software that they use? If so, share about it in the chat. The last type of event I want to discuss is a hybrid event. I recommend allowing participants to choose if they want to attend the event in person or virtually. You can also live stream your event and record it to let people watch later. I suggest mailing participants any necessary material in advance or offering a drive-through option to pick up materials. I'm going to give you another chance to talk about this in your group, and you'll do questions. So it's 3 through 6. And so I'm going to put you back in your same group to have some more discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed your discussion. Would somebody be willing to share with us about what you discussed about your budget, when you're going to have your event, and where you're going to have it at?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, thanks.
I think with a lot of the events that we do or that everybody had an interest, as far as a budget, it maybe doesn't really apply as much. When you're looking to do either the coat drive, food drive, sending letters or cards, you're just mainly looking for a lot of volunteers and other people to help participate in that. So as far as a budget, I've never done a project that I've had to look into a budget.
Okay. What about the other ideas? The when you're going to have your event, or
well, it's something, is it suggested for us to do it like in March or April, like a spring project, correct?
your spring project? Yes, March or April.
Okay. I think in my position, I think right now, like I focus on the coat drive. I have several ideas of things that I want to do around then. So I haven't specifically decided which one to do. I wanted to do something different and a bigger project than I've done the past few times. I don't know. I don't have any other answers because I don't know what exactly I'm going to do yet. So it's all great ideas, but can't tell you what yet.
Okay. Would one other person be willing to share? Please.
Emily, they're very quiet today.
They are. Go ahead, Dale, you share.
Very quiet. So, well, I'd prefer someone else share, but I will share. Yes. We talked about Summer and her project she did last year. We didn't talk about moving forward, but we looked at what all is involved in getting ready for something. And while we haven't really had to have a venue per se, we've had to have places or things. And so Summer had a lot of social media that she had to do. And so it was all pre-planning, getting ready, kind of the master plan idea of it. I discussed maybe with Randall, and she's looking at doing a something for nursing home, taking something into nursing homes, gift bags or boxes or letters or whatever. And so I would, with that, recommend maybe having the date she wants to do it and then going backwards from that date to know when you have to have certain pieces ready to go and you know what to do with those. So kind of like Michelle, a little smaller projects without venues and a little less budgetary issues. But I did talk about our staff project, Emily, at the high school, but I won't share it now unless you want me to.
Thanks for sharing, Dale. We're gonna have one more breakout room, and I'd ask we've had several returning members share. I'd ask a couple of the new members if you'd take on the responsibility to share next time. So let's go to task number 7, branding your events. You'll notice when Allison shared, we had a blue and yellow brand for our coat drive last year with black and white pictures of kids. If you want your event to stand out, you need to choose a compelling theme for your events. This means you need to come up with something that's dynamic and is an overall theme for what you're doing. So you should brainstorm names. When you're thinking about what your name should be, you know, how is this event different than other events in the same sector? What are you hoping the event achieves? And then what are the main components of your event? For example, Coats for Kids, that name really resonates to what we were doing. We were collecting coats and they were for children. It's important to create a tagline. You know, you want to create something that's short and is memorable for people so that they can take that slogan away and want to attend your events. And also having a logo is taking things one step further so that there's brand recognition and you can put it on things that you offer during your event. Like when Allison showed the boxes, they had the logo on them. Step number 8 is identifying and establishing partnerships and sponsorships. So I think that a lot of you guys, when you shared, said, you know, my event may not have a budget. And I think that that is often the case, and that's because you have partnerships and sponsors. So people who are donating those boxes or those flyers or the things that you need to have. You should really think about, are there organizations you can partner with or call on for sponsorships to defray the costs and increase what you're able to do. When you have others involved, people or groups in your event, they will have a stake in it and want to help spread the word about what you're doing. This can, or you may want to consider seeking corporate sponsorships. And so some examples are when Allison talked about, you know, working with those businesses, you know, you could ask them to donate directly, and you also can ask them to host a little bin at their site. And you would want to recognize these people, whether it's sending them a thank you note, you know, shouting out at your event that you appreciate them, including it in any media communication that you have. Step number 10 is creating a publicity plan. Even with the most amazing speaker or the best entertainment lineup, you still need something to get people to the door. Or if you're planning your project, someone to drop off a coat. Event promotion starts with the initial notice of your website, your newsletter, or your save the date. And then it builds with your online presence or the media relations that you have. So some things to consider are, do you need to have a web page announcement, social media, email blasts, press and media connections, printed materials, and post-event thank yous to acknowledge people who's helped you. So now going to the last step, number 10, determining day of and follow-up procedures. Once you've prepared everything for your event, you're going to want to go around and make sure all of those steps are complete. To ensure you're prepared for everything, you'll want to have an agenda that you'll walk through that day of, and it should include everything from setup to cleanup. Include every event detail, no matter how small you think it is. So some examples are maybe at 5 a.m. you are dropping off silent auction items, and then at 10 a.m. you're actually having your presenter start their presentation. No event is complete without follow-up actions. From small items like saying thank you to your speakers to paying all of your invoices, it's important to complete all of those steps. You can also start planning for next year if it's an annual event. So make sure to include follow-up steps in your master plan. So that's the last event planning step. I'm going to give you guys one more time to talk about this, and you're going to go through your event planning template and complete steps 7 through 10, and you'll have 5 minutes. And again, like I said, if some new members would be willing to share, we'd really appreciate it. I hope you guys had a good final discussion. Would somebody be willing to share with us about your brand, publicity plan, what you plan to do the day of, or sponsors or partners?
Well, we didn't get to figure out a name just yet, but you know, we're thinking about doing like some type of beautification thing, like outside of our school, maybe like a flower garden and stuff. And as we were speaking with Jody and Olivia, they were, you know, coming up with some great ideas. You know, like social media is a great way to get things out there, and then like our local news stations, and like Olivia mentioned, like the newspaper and stuff. Maybe not a lot of people read the newspaper here lately, but I mean they have like the news app and everything. So that would be a great way to get our just like a flyer, but also have our things broadcasted over social media and over the radio and stuff. So that would be a great way to get it out there.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to share? Okay, well, that concludes kind of our discussion about event planning. Can you guys take a minute in the chat and just share with me something you learned today that you plan to use? So Michelle decided that her sprint projects and the tagline, spring project. And Kristen was looking at options and challenges for her project. Kylie said it's better to take time to plan your event to make it better at the end, and goals are very important. Those are great takeaways. And Jody enjoyed networking. And who's this? Sierra said planning's the way to go. Great takeaways. Thank you guys for participating today. Just to finish this up, we have a few announcements that I'll go over really quickly, and then we'll be done for today. The first one is if you're an AmeriCorps mentor, you're going to receive a package of color in thank you cards in the mail. Please have 15 of your students complete the coloring project. Each student will receive 2 cards to color. One card is for the child to give to a parent, teacher, family member, or someone else that they choose. And then the other card is to send back to the Education Alliance in the envelope provided. You should complete this project by November 30th. This next thing is about the holiday cheer exchange. We encourage you to join us for a holiday cheer exchange that will really help boost morale. You'll be matched with 1 team member to send a holiday wish to. You can share your holiday cheer through a paper card, a digital card, a small gift or ornament that's less than $5, or something else you dream up. You can share your holiday cheer in person, by mail, or electronically. Everyone will share what they received during the holiday party. Please register to participate in the exchange by November 18th, and then you'll be notified on November 19th who you're matched with. And then you should send your holiday cheer by December 6th. It's okay if your item isn't received until the following week. There's still time to refer a friend to be an AmeriCorps member this year. If you recommend a candidate who successfully enrolls in the AmeriCorps program, you'll receive a $50 gift card. Recommendations are being accepted through November 12th. The Education Alliance is offering a Best of Huntington raffle where you'd have a chance to win a Marshall football skybox tickets and several other prizes. And I will send out the link to be able to purchase raffle tickets, and you're also welcome to join us for the event on November 10th at 7:30 at SIP in Huntington, where they'll announce the winners. And then I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't already done so, to please join our Remind app. Let me send that in the chat really quickly to be able to receive text message notifications. Several of you have already joined, and if you haven't, please do so today. AmeriCorps mentors should enroll at least 18 students who meet the ABC risk factors in the mentoring session report by November 15th. So that's all of our announcements. I ask that college ambassadors stay on for just a few minutes with us, but everyone else, that's everything we need for today. Does anyone have any questions or anything else before you leave?
I need to know who's with Alicia. You're
Send it
muted.
to you in the chat. I think it was Melinda, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
Melinda.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Okay, well, everybody's welcome to go ahead and head off for today. Thank you for joining us. And if you're a college ambassador, stay on for just a few minutes. And you're going to do this, Jody, right?
Well, I haven't gotten anything prepared for it, so I'm sorry, but for college ambassadors, I've had the last couple of days off, so I'm a little fuzzy brain today, but these are the trainings that will be for your workshops that you can go and access on NCAN. I picked out what I think are the best to fit your position, but there are many more that you can choose from, and you can even do so many of them that you earn badges and stuff. So you're more than welcome to do that if you want to. Required courses, November 18th, admissions advising for first generation college goers. December 2nd is family engagement. December 16th, federal financial aid programs. January 6th, Financial Aid 101. January 20th would be the FAFSA Completion 101. February 3rd, Adult Learners. February 17th, what is diversity, equity, and inclusion? And those are the ones that I chose, but like I said, there are many more that you can also add to that, but these are the ones that we will go over in our team meetings. So
Okay,
after you take them.
Before we go on to the next slide, just to back up and give you guys some big picture information. So this year we're partnering with NCAN, which is the National College Attainment Network, to provide you guys with some specific training that's relative to your position. So Jody shared the specific workshops you have to take. And we will be discussing those after each meeting that we have. So we'll send out the list and you should complete those workshops.
So that's a list of all the ones that we're required to do.
This list is the ones you're required to do. And then this list is if you would like to receive a certified advisor badge. you would need to complete these courses, but that's optional.
So everyone would need to go and create an NCAN account. So the link will be there, and then you can also see the full list of courses available there too. Okay. And if you have any questions when you go in to go do that, you can also contact me and we'll work through it. Okay.
So any questions or issues about this?
Will these all be online, like through Zoom, the required courses?
They're all pre-recorded workshops that you can watch online, and then at the end of it, it has an assessment, and then it'll give you like a certificate for completing that course. And we'll spend about 15 minutes after the workshops every 2 weeks, just discussing what you learned from your workshop that you watched during that 2-week period.
Okay.
And there is a list that Jody has that tells you how long they are. I think the longest one is 90 minutes. So they're not super long, it won't take a ton of your time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jody, anything else to share?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, that's everything we had. I will send you guys that list. And I'll also pre-schedule emails so that you get reminders of which workshop to watch when.
Emily, I have another question.
Go ahead.
Back before Jody started with those workshops, there was a sheet up of mentoring due by November 15th.
Oh,
That's the
this is
first I've
for
seen that.
AmeriCorps mentors.
Okay, I'm like, wait, that's the first I've seen that or something. Okay.
You don't have to do that one.
I'm like, whoa, wait. All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you staying on a little bit extra.